welcome. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for coming.
I know you've been waiting a while. But yeah, it is in a school day.
Yeah.
Lots of things are happening, but we're very happy to have you here. This is the Next Liberation podcast live from the ICU. We're very excited to be here.
Yes.
By the way, thank you to ICU for providing this very lovely studio.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. It's a great opportunity to talk about something that is often not very talked about because, I mean, you're going to be hearing a lot of things that mainstream media would not tell you about. And honestly, maybe you wouldn't even find it in English anywhere available online. But that's part of why it's very important to get people to know about our region and about what happened to us in the recent years. But before we start, I think we should introduce ourselves.
Yes.
I am Nora, and this is
Sara.
And I'm Eman.
and we have Eman with us today, and Alberto should be joining us shortly. But before we, get into the details, we would like to do a small intro of the countries that we're going to be talking about, namely Egypt and Syria.
Yes.
For a lot of people who have never been to the Middle East before, we thought it would be a good idea to talk about where these places are. So Egypt, for starters, is in Africa, is in the top eastmost part of Africa. It has Libya to the west, Sudan to the south, and Palestine, Jordan, and then Syria. There's a lot of countries in that area to the east. And then the Mediterranean Sea to the north, and the Red Sea to the east. It is, some people call it part of the Middle East, some people call it part of North Africa. And then some people just for short say MENA, MENA, which means Middle East and North Africa, which is like the more umbrella term of a lot of the countries that speak Arabic, basically.
That's a new one. I think it's a new terminology.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of people use it in Egypt. Yeah. What about
Well,
Syria?
not so far. Syria is there, sharing borders with Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, and Turkey. Once we were one country with Egypt.
Egypt and Syria
Yeah.
was one country
Even though we
at some
don't-
part.
Yeah, we don't share borders, but we were one
Yeah,
country.
we were one country.
Indeed.
Yeah.
For was it like 3 years? It wasn't a lot of time.
Yeah,
Maybe even less.
Yeah, but I feel like it still has an impact on the
true.
people that we
Agreed.
still feel like one and very close to each other.
Agreed.
And Syria, if you search about it, you can find it rich in history. Damascus, the capital, is one of the oldest capitals in the whole world.
Yes.
And wherever you walk in Damascus, you see history and something very old. And of course, wherever you walk, you can smell the Syrian jasmine. I can talk about the beauty of Syria forever, but yeah, in terms of location, this is where it is.
Yeah. So they are very close. They're not, right next to each other, but they have a lot of common culture. And as we said during the 60s, they were, under the same flag, under the same country for a couple of years during the time where Abdel Nasser was president. So yeah, we did have that in our history. And then community-wise, for Egypt, Egypt is, I think, there is no clear census, but I think we're about 80% Muslim and 20% Christians. Mostly
Around 90.
Really?
Yeah. I
They
think
say
90.
there's no census that is actually accurate enough to capture the real number.
But do you know in our IDs, I think some countries really are surprised to know that in our national ID, religion is mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your religion is written
It
there.
does say.
On our,
Yeah, that's why I thought this was normal. So when I try to travel outside of Egypt for the first time and I asked my friends, what is your religion? And then he said, we don't have religion. And then I asked him, can you show me your ID? He said, it's not written in the ID.
What? Is this not a thing?
What are you talking about?
Do you have your religion you don't have your religion on ID? So in Egypt, is it Syria the same?
Yeah, it's the same. On our ID, we have our religion.
We have our religion.
Yes.
It's written. Yeah.
But for Egypt, as we said, it's Muslims and Christians, and then for Christians, for Muslims it's mostly Sunni.
Yeah.
Muslims for Christians, it's mostly Coptic Orthodox, but there's also Catholics. But yeah, it's mostly just these two, to be fair. But with Syria, Syria is a lot of people in one.
We actually
country.
in Syria, I don't think like when we meet people, we think about their religion because we are very diverse.
Yes.
Like in terms of Muslims, like we have the Sunni, we have Alawi, we have Durzi, we have a lot of groups, and we also have Christians, and we are very close to each other. Like we never thought about that. Oh, we're Muslims, we're Christians. We used to be friends without thinking about it. Yes, it's on our ID, but I don't think I ever asked my friend like, "What's your religion?" Yeah, so it's very diverse, but it's at the same time it feels like more like we're all kind of one.
Yeah.
I would say.
This is the idea of the Arabs. I feel that really we don't like even like different nationality, but still we're Arabs.
We're
we
Arabs.
feel connected.
Yeah, under
We're
this-
Arabs. Like we speak the same language, we have the same culture. We're just Arabs. So it's
I would
really
say.
like I feel that the MENA region is just like one country, and we love talking about each other, like culture, and talk to each
Yeah,
other.
we were just talking about this yesterday. But yeah, we talk about this a lot. That in the MENA region, borders really do. You can very strongly tell that borders are synthetic.
Yes.
True.
It is a continuum, and it feels very, very wrong to have
The
borders.
border.
Between these countries because society, culture, language, it's all a continuum.
Yeah,
It is very, very strange to kind of segment it, you know what I mean?
Agree.
But yeah, we talked about that a lot, so I thought I'd bring it up. So yeah, it is Syria is, I would say, much more diverse, like ethnically and religiously than Egypt, which I also think usually is connected to the stability of these countries. I feel like the more like factions, quote unquote, you have, it becomes harder and harder to kind of have them all connected on a common goal or like identity.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is an introduction to the countries that we will be talking about today.
Yeah,
Just,
I have.
go ahead.
Maybe we can raise a question. Who made falafel first?
Oh my God.
Syria or Egypt?
We're gonna fight now.
No.
This is very debatable.
It's a huge debate. The
Falafel.
falafel. If you're aware, like if you're familiar with falafel, it's like the vegan kind of burger.
Yeah.
So it's a fried vegetables, and we
Yeah.
put it in a sandwich or wraps.
Yeah.
And all the Middle East like countries, they like argue that this is our
Ours.
owner, this is ours, the Palestinian, the Syrian, the Egyptian.
But then some of them are made of chickpeas and some of them are made of fava beans.
This is how it makes it
There's
easier,
like
so,
this
yeah.
falafel superiority thing going on.
Yeah.
We believe it's the Turkish.
Turkish. So
Oh my God.
that's a thing that I was surprised when I came to Japan, that they link it to Turkey.
Oh.
I lived in Turkey and none of them make falafel except for Arabs or Syrians.
Yeah.
And then when I came here, you can only find falafel at Turkish restaurants, and I'm like, how?
Why they have falafel?
I think every region in the world has something similar they fight over. Like Italians do it with also like tiramisu.
Oh.
And I think in West Africa they do it with the jollof. So
Yeah.
whose jollof is the best? Ghanaian, Nigerian, Senegalese, and then sometimes the Cameroonians just chip in. It's like, who called you into this conversation?
Get out of here. But actually, I think this connects to what we were just saying, that region is a continuum. It has always been a continuum. And so going like from this border to this border, we made this food. That is actually ridiculous, in my opinion. It is a continuum, and we were all moving freely from one country to another historically. So I don't like to go into the debates of like who made what. I'm like, just shut up. We're all a continuum of the same peoples. Okay, just sit down, calm down. Of course, there are regions. Some regions, for example, would have a different herb more common, so they would change
use it more,
according to what they have. But it is a continuum. I that is my stance on it. which is to say, I'm a pacifist. And we're like, we made it. We made it.
I would love the idea,
I believe that it's true.
But honestly, Sara makes it better than me. So, like, really, I cannot like argue with her. She really makes a very good
Compromise is
falafel.
Compromise is also
We
very
have to make it now for the whole of ICU.
You got it.
After this recording,
She
You
can.
So, revolution.
Yes.
Revolutions. The so-called Arab Spring.
Yes.
It is I don't know, I think whoever coined this was not even like Arab. I think it was some American. It was
I
winter.
think the name comes from like spring because like the spring is the start of like blooming flowers,
Yes.
different
Yeah, I
life.
guess that's
That's why they call it
Yeah, you're right. I guess
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
So they call it like the Arab Spring since like we started really something that really
Yeah.
very new to
Yeah.
to the whole MENA region. That's why they call it like the spring.
I don't like it.
You don't like the name?
I don't like the name,
very
but
poetic.
we could that's not what we're here to talk about. So first off, I think we should start with the early days before the revolutions even happened and the causes of it. So it started with Tunisia.
Yes.
That was how the Arab Spring started. In Tunisia, there was a very famous incident where a fruit vendor set himself on fire. And then everyone was like, what is going on? And digging into his story, this guy, he had a cart, like a fruit and vegetable cart in Tunisia. And the authorities tried to confiscate it. And then he was like, this is like, how am I gonna, I need to,
Survive.
yeah, I need this to survive. What are you guys doing? And then when he tried to fight against it, one of the policemen slapped him in the face, like in the market. Everyone was watching, and that is a very big insult, I think, in all cultures.
Yes.
And then he tried to like talk to the police again and go like, hey, I need my things. I need at least an apology, anything. And he was completely ignored. And then he went back to the same place and set himself on fire. A very famous word that was said at that time, I think I remember, was dégagé. It was when the police officer slapped him. She said dégagé, which is like in French, like get out of here. And so when the revolution started, everyone started shouting at the president, dégagé, like you get out of here. We're saying here, you get out of here. And then it became kind of like the motto of the revolution.
I think this started in January
Yeah.
2011. So
Yes.
it started in Tunisia.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we actually
yeah,
started
I
with
know.
that. This happened in January of 2011. It was winter.
Yeah, so this was the start of it, and for us, like when I hear the word the Arab Spring, I feel that this is one of the largest transformation that took place in the MENA region that I witnessed.
Yeah, in our
After
modern times. Yeah.
after the colonization, like people when we talk about Middle East, colonization and the British and the French and the people.
Yeah.
Oh, and see who comes. Thank you for coming.
We have our main guest here. Our main guest, the one and only Alberto.
Yeah, so like I was just saying that, like I don't know if I'm lucky or I'm not lucky to witness such a huge transformation in the Middle East, where a lot of people speak up. We never thought about talking and telling our opinion and voices that much.
Yeah.
In Egypt and all the
way.
Arab countries, no way.
way.
But
Yeah.
this was a huge transformation after the colonization
Yes.
that we witnessed this thing. And mainly, it's not like what's going on now between different nations. It's anti-government power and revolution.
Yes.
We are disagreeing with what's going on inside our country. We never have voices. So I think this was really like the first transformation kind of thing that give us like power to the people that many presidents, you're gonna hear the story now, but at that time, many presidents of different countries in the MENA region stepped down even before their country started revolution. They were scared. They now know that the people in the Middle East have their voices.
Right.
And president become really scared. So it was really amazing to witness such thing and to see how countries, like in the MENA region, we are like, I don't know, 12, 18 countries, many countries starting from 2011 was influenced by each other. It started in Tunisia, Egypt, Syria, Bahrain, they did something, and also Yemen, Libya. So everyone is listening to what's going on, and people are really, we have voice, we have to really go for against. And there was a logo, a slogan, in all the countries, use it, called in Arabic, الشعب يريد إسقاط النظام. And all the countries were shouting for this logo, slogan. And it means in English that people will put down the regime.
Yes.
All the Arab countries, we were just shouting for this thing.
Same.
It's an anti-government.
It helps that we all speak the same language also. It becomes like a unifying chant.
Yeah, yes. Social media influence. When we heard the story in Tunisia, okay, let's do it. And Egypt started. After people hear about Egypt, Syria said,
Syria.
we can do it. Yemen, Libya, our neighboring country. And presidents were stepping down. Presidents were killed. Presidents were scared. It was really a huge transformation for all.
And I don't know about you guys, but for me, I was very young. But it was the first time that I feel like I belonged to Syria.
True.
When I thought about the revolution, when I thought that I could do something, it was the first time that I feel like, I actually love my country.
It's funny, my brother actually said the
serious.
same thing to me.
Yeah, because it feels like we've been on a sleep mode our entire life. We shouldn't think about our country. We shouldn't think about the regime. We shouldn't think about our surrounding. But once we start thinking, it's actually our country.
Yes.
We should be controlling.
It was definitely, I would say, a wake-up call. Everyone, it's almost like everyone was blindfolded, and suddenly they were like, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
Can
that
we
even
say whatever we want?" It was definitely quite the moment. I think here also I wanna before we talk more about the causes, I wanna make a distinction between causes and triggers. The way I see it, the causes have been happening for years and decades. No freedom of expression. The economical situation is terrible. Very tyrannical regimes,
corruption,
police
everywhere.
state, emergency state in a lot of these countries. And so a lot of people, it wasn't for the world, it seems like people all of a sudden revolted because of a trigger. For example, for Tunisia, the fruit vendor, they didn't go on the revolution because the guy set himself on fire. It is the guy setting himself on fire was the trigger. It was gonna happen. It's like a pressure cooker that is going to explode any moment, but you just need a spark to just get everyone to just get up at the same time and start doing something about it. But it has been going on for a very long time. For Syria, the emergency law was there for how long?
Since 1963.
It
We
is
had an
insane.
emergency state. I was born within an emergency state without knowing why.
In emergency perpetually, forever.
Emergency state simply means that the government is allowed to detain anyone they suspect, and there are no political movements allowed at all, any even gathering. So they have the right to to detain you, take over your property, anything, only if they suspect you. And you never know, why would they suspect you? Sometimes they would decide to suspect you. Without a
They wouldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even bother to tell you or your family.
Exactly.
For all in, you could just get disappeared, and then be disappeared for 10 years, and people would think you're dead, and then suddenly it's
Sounds
wait,
familiar.
he's alive. Disappearing was very common at that time in Egypt and Syria.
for sure.
Someone, basically, the police would just suddenly stop someone in the streets and then pull him into a van, and bam, he's gone for sometimes years, and sometimes they just die. And their family would only know where they are 3 years later. It was devastating, but there was so much repression because of this and other things. But it needed a trigger, right? It needed a trigger to get the people going. So back to Egypt. Egypt had the same problems with corruption and financial situation and emergency state. And then for Egypt, there were actually two consecutive sparks, I would say. The first one was an incident that we call the Khaled Said incident. Khaled Said was, he's from Alexandria, right?
Yeah.
He was like a blogger. He used to blog about, it wasn't even that big of a deal. He says I have dirt on someone. He's he's a little rebellious, The police just barges, so he was at an internet cafe. The police just barges in and just pulls him out of the internet cafe to the other side of the street and then they beat him to death. And then they pull him into the van, and then they throw him back later on the street. And then they start like going on to all these lies of how he was on drugs. He was trying to hide a weed joint that he choked on.
Was he political, actually, like his content, or just...
So there's a lot of people say a lot of things, but I did check his the blogs that talked about him. He wasn't really that political, but he was like kind of sounding his frustration. He wasn't even like, I wouldn't say that he was that political, to be honest.
He was so young, like he was born
like 25?
in 1982, I guess.
Yeah, he was in his 20s.
And like normal in a internet cafe shop, just like talking with friends when some kind of police came and asked everyone, give me your ID, I want to see your IDs. And he didn't like the way the police talked to him.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they told him,
right.
you should not talk to me like this way. And then
He was
police got
rebellious.
so nervous, like, are you saying that to me?
How dare
They
you?
took him, and people
Wait,
saw it.
police? They don't like that? Whoa.
This is so surprising.
This is new.
So shocking.
How come you can talk to me
What?
like that? And just like, they grabbed him and like kept like,
They beat him to
hitting
death
until
on the
he's
street.
dead. Yes, and actually, like as Nora said and Sarah, we get used to this. Like this is normal.
Yeah.
But this story was really unique because it was seen, it was witnessed.
Yeah, so this was the beginning
This
of
is the
the
first
rise
time.
of
Yeah.
social media in the Middle East. This
Yes.
is a very, very
People
this is a
saw
crucial
what's
part of the
going on.
story.
We heard a lot about the stories inside. We don't know.
Yes.
We never say. Khalid Said was the first story that we saw the police hitting someone until he's dead. And this was in 2010.
Yeah, this was
June.
the
So this was
June of,
before. And as Noor said, this was the trigger. Like,
Yeah, this
people
was like
started-
8 months,
What's going on?
7 months before the
Tunisia
revolution
accident.
happened.
Yeah.
But the thing with Khalid Said is that, so as I told you, the police was like trying to cover up for what they did. And then eventually their family went to the morgue to see the body, and someone took a photo of the body. And that photo
Wow.
went viral on Facebook. And everyone was just, we hadn't seen things like this before.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, wait, what? So this guy that they were talking that he choked on a joint, his face was smashed.
Yeah.
You couldn't even tell that.
I
who
still
he
remember
is.
the photo,
You
like,
can
the
tell that
photo's
he was
everywhere.
brutalized.
Yeah.
You couldn't even tell that he's human. They beat him that hard, and so everyone was like, "Okay, that's it." And then
That's
protests started happening.
Let's get ready.
Did the protests start in Alexandria at the time? Is
Yes.
this where
Yeah.
like started building
True.
up?
So we had really like I actually one of my friends like he knows like Khalid Said. Yeah, they were living in the same neighborhood area, so they know him. And like once they received the whole news and people saw the police hitting him. So huge like protests like started to like for anti-government and ill treatment from the police.
Yeah.
And I think it expanded to Cairo, but mainly it started in Alexandria.
Yeah.
Because he was from Alexandria.
It was almost immediate. Like the moment people saw this,
Yes. Yeah. So like because like they saw this, the police hit him, and then even the police took him in a car and they hit him again, and then after 2 days, the police throw the body in front of
They
his
dumped him.
cabs.
Wow.
They
Yeah.
dumped him back.
Yeah.
in
So
the
it's like
street.
it's done. It's done. And this was really like the trigger that let's do it. We don't care about anything. Let's just do it. And people started.
But like we said, this was like 7 months before the revolution
Yes.
even started. So there were protests happening for 7 months before the Arab Spring in Egypt, quote unquote. The protests have been happening, but they were really choked. Like they wouldn't really let them have a lot of people. They would detain a lot of people. And so it wasn't really, that big of a movement that would be a revolution. And then the second spark, that was the first spark. The second spark was Tunisia.
Yes.
So when the revolution started, when the huge protest started, the mass protest started in Tunisia in January, the Egyptians were like, we're just gonna do that.
We
too."
can do it. We can do it.
Friday morning, some of the like minor party and political movement heads gathered, and they were like, "Hey guys,
Let's do something.
we're gonna do something about it, but we are gonna go out. No one is gonna carry their political
IDs.
no flags of your political party. Nothing that you could know what movement or what party you're from. We are gonna go to Tahrir Square with the Egyptian flags, and we're all anonymous, but we are people who stand against what's happening." And it it was just like that. Friday morning, people started moving to the Tahrir Square on foot from,
Everywhere in
cities that are
Cairo,
very
yeah,
far
yeah.
away. Yeah, 2 hours, 3 hours walk to the Tahrir Square, and it would get bigger and bigger and bigger until the minute they got there, they realized, holy moly,
It's all of
there's
us.
so many
Yeah.
people in here.
Yeah.
We
Oh
probably
my
hadn't even
God.
seen that before.
Yeah.
That
It
amount of
was
people.
a massive number of people.
Yeah, we didn't even
Yeah.
see it coming.
Never.
It wasn't
never.
only emotional for Egyptians, but it was also emotional for Syrians.
Yeah.
To see this happening, especially we can see it on the TV.
Oh, so
I
you
can
really
still
can-
remember the way I was sitting in front of the TV with all of my aunts and family
Oh,
around me,
wow.
and we were like,
Look what
That must have been quite a moment.
wow, this
You're
is
witnessing
really
history.
happening. And we start, but we have it on the TV, but the volume is very low. We don't want anyone to hear that we are
right.
watching this
It's on the
now.
hush hush.
And then we look at each other and we're like, could it happen in Syria?
Oh.
And then like, no, no,
Could
no,
it
no,
be?
no.
Could it
But
be?
then we question again once like the revolution continued in Egypt, and each day passing by we're like, could it also be in Syria? And then we started getting courage,
Yeah.
I think, to start something. But we were terrified. In Syria,
Oh, yeah.
it is so different. Like
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Syria,
It's
we
a
are,
very different
we are
landscape.
terrified to speak about the government, even inside our homes. We always say that walls have ears. We cannot trust anything or anyone. You don't talk about this. I remember that once I was very young at school. I always questioned how life in Syria works. Like in the morning in school, we have the national anthem, which is not actually for Syria, but our national anthem is for the military.
Ooh.
And I would always sing it, and I don't even understand the lyrics, And they always
Yeah, we're just indoctrinated.
they
you know,
always
just-
salute our previous president, Hafiz al-Assad, and they always say the immortal Hafiz al-Assad. And in Arabic,
Oh my
it's
God.
Al-Qaid al-Khalid Hafiz al-Assad. So I always thought that his first name is Khalid, which is immortal, because I didn't understand what we were saying.
Immortal.
Yeah. So once one of my friends had a notebook that has a picture of Bashar al-Assad. And she was like, oh my God, I love him so much. I love our president. And I was
Oh
in
my
the middle of the
God.
class and I was like,
That's so
why do you
cringe.
love him? And then she looked at me. She didn't know what to answer. And she was like, he has blue eyes.
Oh wow! For one thing, like
I was like, okay, that's
he's got one thing going on for him.
I don't remember that he did anything to us. I always remember that we were terrified to speak about him. And then I went back home and I told my mom, and she was like, don't ever say that again. Do not question, do not talk about that with people.
We do not question these things.
Yeah, so when this revolution started happening, so like people were terrified to go to the streets. So I remember the first protest that happened in Damascus. It was maybe 10 people, and it lasted for maybe less than 1 minute.
Oh my God!
The police immediately came
They
and they were
dispersed everyone.
separated.
Yeah.
They controlled us.
So
like-
when this was after
yeah, this was
in
like
Egypt?
March 15.
March, okay.
Yeah, it was the first revolution.
So in
that-
Egypt
yeah,
we
the first-
started January 25,
Oh, I
and
see.
then I think it's
until
like
March. So for us, it was
March,
Yeah,
okay.
it took you like a month-ish
Yeah,
to
yeah,
very
boil
interesting.
over. Huh?
Yeah, yeah. And
To
then
simmer.
it kept happening like for 1 minute, and that's it.
Yeah.
Until March 18th, when some like young children, young students wrote on the walls of their school, "It's your turn, doctor," referring to Bashar al-Assad
Yeah,
because
because
he
he's a
was
doctor, right?
He's a doctor, and the police came and they detained those children who were like 8, 10, 11 years, and they were tortured, and they were kept like one of the children had his skin out of
Ripped
his-
off?
Yeah, ripped off his body,
What?
and their nails were ripped because they wrote with them. So it was like brutal. So the families wanted their children, but they know if they went crazy, they wouldn't get their children. So they tried talking, and they were like, if you want children's, send us your women's. So they were like, what, is this a kind of trade? And they were like, no. Like they will give you new children. And this was like in a city called Daraa, and the people there are very close to each other, and they care about their women, and they care about
Yeah,
each
you
other.
can't just say that about women.
That
This
was
is-
like
You do not say
made
that
them
about women.
like go on fire.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, no more talking.
If
And
they didn't, I
yeah.
would be very shocked.
Yeah,
I'd be
so-
very disappointed.
Since that day, people started protesting a lot in Daraa, and then it started spreading
So this
to
is
whole Syria.
So you would say that the trigger was Egypt, but also the kids in
Yeah,
Dara
that
were
was, like,
detained and tortured.
This part. That was like
Yeah.
this part. First because of Egypt and then because of the children. And then it started spreading all over Syria. And we called the first Friday, I think, the Friday of Dignity. Because it was really
Jum'at
related
al-Karama?
to our dignity.
Yeah.
To our dignity, like our children, our women.
Yeah,
you
you
know,
don't
how
talk
could you
about
ever
women
do
like
that?
that. Get the fuck out of here.
But that was during only March, the few days. I don't know, how was it like that? How was it in Egypt?
Yeah, March we were celebrating.
Yeah, so
Right?
I think here we could stop for a minute and then go on to. I'm sorry, guys, I'm being attacked by a mosquito, but you can't see that. I think we should go back to this is like the beginning, the early days, and the causes and the triggers. But I think we should go in and talk about the. Alberto, should we start with? Should we go back to like Egypt and cover it and then Syria, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I just, by the way, love to hear this, from you. Because I remember watching this on the TV. And it was not just, that part of the world that was like inspired. But the global south was inspired.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being like, because we got to the streets all the time. But then when we saw, can we attain that? So it was hopeful for a lot of the world.
That's interesting.
I remember I was calling my
So
one
you
of
were
my
in
closest
Japan
friends.
at that time?
No, I was in Mexico, yeah.
Okay.
And I was calling a really good friend of mine in Cairo.
Oh.
And I was like, Habibi, tell me, like, what's going on? How are you living it? And he's like, Alberto, you need to see this. We're on the streets.
Yeah.
People are coming. And I'm like, ah. So I have that and I treasure that memory. But like now, like hearing it, so protests started. And then how long was it from there to the president saying like, I'm out?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so for Egypt,
Yes.
timeline wise, as we said, the protest started January 25, right?
Yeah.
Which is wasn't it Eid al-Shurta?
Yes, it was the police day.
It was like a
So,
day
yeah.
where you should be commemorating celebrating the police.
police.
And then they were like, okay, let's celebrate.
Let's do it.
What a
Let's
better
celebrate
way,
on
what a
the
better way
streets.
than a riot.
Huge celebration.
Yeah, I
That's
think
really
that
big,
is
a
also
huge
very
celebration
important.
for them.
Like it is,
Yes.
the
It
day
really
itself
represents
is,
something that-
is
yeah.
pretty significant.
Was it selected because the police, they're off?
That is a very good point.
I think so.
I don't think they're off though. They,
No, but they was like, yeah, they I think they
Maybe they're
like.
like less on duty?
that is a very
If that
interesting
makes
point.
sense.
You guys will have to look this up
You
on the
want-
podcast.
yes.
I'm not sure about that.
But yeah, I think the main cause, we just want to live like life without corruption. We want to have a normal life. Everyone is equal. We want to have a good health situation, good education situation. So
That is
actually,
a-
our needs was just like, that's why, like as Nora said, we didn't go for under a specific group. Everyone went out on the January 20th. Everyone were out, like all the neighbors, everyone who have like different backgrounds,
Yeah.
political. Just let's really make our country better.
That's true. My brother wasn't even political back then, but he still went with everyone because he heard that his friends are going, and he was like, okay, it's like a 2-hour walk to the Tahrir Square. Let's just walk together, have a good time. And then
People, yes.
it
My
started.
friends were just going like that. They don't have an agenda.
But obviously, some
Let's go.
people were political.
Definitely,
but some
yeah.
people could see,
Yeah.
you have to be blind to not see what's happening in Egypt. But you also have to be at least slightly political to be motivated to move.
Right.
But I think the important thing about the 25th of January is that even the ones who weren't very politically inclined
Yes, they
were
went
like, okay, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And I would say Tunisia is like a very big part
Yeah.
of it. But this went on for 18 days.
Yes.
The initial, what we would call the January 25 revolution went on for 18 days.
18 days. Yes.
And on February 11, the president at the time, Mohammed Hosni Mubarak, decided to step down and hand on the power to, I think, we call it the Supreme Council of Armed Forces.
Yeah.
So to the military.
Basically,
Yes.
yes. Basically, yes.
People were
That was
so
the
happy
compromise.
with this.
That was the compromise.
That was so interesting. And I remember calling Ahmed, my friend. I was like, but why do you in control to the military? Why are you happy? Because where we come from, that doesn't end really well. It's the opposite effect.
yes.
He was like, no, Alberto, the military there or not, it's the people. So it was.
Yeah.
Was it like accepted by the people? Like this is good.
A lot
as
of
a
people,
transition
yes.
stage, I think we were considering it as a transition
Yeah,
stage.
it was this specific committee was more of a transitional committee.
Yep.
Like, hey guys, let's not devolve into chaos, but let's have also a clear plan to do fair elections.
Yeah.
And that actually happened. That actually did
Yes.
happen, miraculously,
Yeah.
according to plan. But during these 18 days, so many protesters were brutalized and killed and sniped.
Yes.
Even the ones who weren't politically inclined, like my brother, after the first and second and third day, they were like, oh no.
was
I'm not going to
getting
watch my
dangerous,
friend get
Yeah.
sniped in front of me and do nothing about it. This is messed up. And so even the ones who weren't very political, they changed. They always say the Tahrir Square changed us. We're not the same people going in as the people getting out. We're different people now.
True.
But yeah, there was a lot of that during the revolution. But it culminated into Hosni Mubarak resigning.
And we were celebrating. People were happy that
Oh
we
my
can
God.
do that.
Celebrations everywhere. And then at that time, the next year, actually, 2012, there was the actual elections, the presidential elections at the time. And the Mohammed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood Party was declared winner. And he won by a very small margin. He won by like 0.3% or something. It wasn't a lot.
So maybe for just people who don't know the Muslim Brotherhood or like didn't, maybe we can just quickly like tell them what is the Muslim Brotherhood.
What is the Muslim Brotherhood?
What is the Muslim Brotherhood? Yeah, like it started a long time ago of some like I think in 1920s, I guess.
They have been there for more than 100
Yeah,
years. for
so
sure.
they call it as like a social religious movement where the leader of this group wanted to rule the country according to the Islam rules. And at the beginning, they really like were welcome. They were really, many people joined. They think that, yeah, why not? It's gonna be because like if we follow the Islam, it's okay, it's perfect. Like everyone would be happy. However, some people found that they have like a different direction. They want something more from the power, and a lot of issues started up with the Muslim Brotherhood. It's very complicated.
I think it's very important to preface by saying that the Muslim Brotherhood were subjugated and brutalized for decades in Egypt.
Yeah, it has a lot of true.
And they never really gave up on their dream of ruling. They studied, they did their best, they organized. They were, I would say, they were the most organized and disciplined party in Egypt at the time, which explains how they won, even though they were in the shadows for decades.
No one knew exactly. Like at
They
the
were
end,
waiting.
one of the
They
They
were
were waiting, but while they were waiting, they were studying, they were working
Preparing.
hard, they were getting the people to like them, they were handing out, flour, oil, things to help the community. They were like trying to gain a grassroots support, waiting for the moment where they could shine.
And they were
took it.
everywhere.
They
Like
took
our
it.
neighbors, we have neighbors from the Muslim Brotherhood group. It was totally, we were living together.
Yeah.
We were totally living together.
Yeah, it's not like it was polarized. But
Yeah,
they
yes.
were definitely like among us,
Yeah.
doing their darn bestest in the shadows, and it paid off at that time. They
Like
won.
no one imagined that like the
No.
Muslim Brotherhood
Nobody saw it coming.
represent like the president of the country will be from the Muslim Brotherhood group.
Yeah.
Like, and people, I'm not a Muslim Brotherhood, but I elected him. I selected him. Because at that time, I think there were only like two.
Yes, he was up against this guy called Shafiq, who was also of
From
the old
the
regime.
old
So everyone was
regime.
like, "Why are we bringing back this like
Yes.
a guy from the same like authority? This is we're back to square one."
Yeah. So like at that time, just like we had only two options. But we were still super optimistic, super excited that the country would, if we really were able to let the previous president like step down, we can do anything.
Yeah.
So we were really very optimistic, and people were celebrating, and we had elections, no more corruption, and like we were so excited. This was the first time for me actually to go and elect
But yeah, I think a very important thing to point out is that elections up until that time in Egypt were a farce. Like you would go and you would cast your vote, but the same guy wins
30
every
years.
time.
30 years.
So
30
it's theater.
years.
It's theater of democracy, but actually no.
Sounds familiar. So, was there, I guess, this awareness that if the people of Egypt didn't like it either way, now they know they have the power
Yes. We
to,
had the fear.
to take it out.
Yes, we can, if we really were able to make the 30 years like president, the previous one who stayed with it, who can step down, we can do anything. So we were really like more optimistic.
Yeah, we were confident.
Yeah.
We were optimistic.
Yeah.
We definitely saw better things on the horizon.
So Noura, who did you elect? Did you
I
like?
actually did not vote that time.
Okay.
Oh wait, I actually went and I think I like nullified my vote.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I was like wrote gibberish. I didn't
Okay.
like any of them. Like
Not radical
these
enough.
We didn't have a good
No.
options, but like yeah.
At least you had options.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
let's yeah.
Honestly, the fact that I could even go and say
Yes.
that I don't like either of them to me felt like such
Yeah,
power.
true,
also,
true.
I'm like, wait, I'm allowed to say anything?
Yeah.
What? It was revolutionary.
Yeah.
It truly
Yeah,
was.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It
Yeah.
didn't only motivate you guys that you can do anything. When we
Yes.
saw Egypt like making their president step down, we thought that we can also do the same because our president have been here like for a pretty
The father and
long
like yeah,
time
you have,
from the father from 1970s. And but it's so different in Syria that I don't remember like any time in my life, even until now, that I remember a name that was, against Bashar al-Assad in elections or any other name.
Yeah,
I don't
even
recall.
know who
I
they
don't
are.
recall any face or any name.
Because it
It's-
doesn't matter. Because it's
doesn't matter.
we cannot
inconsequential.
like no one
It
can.
doesn't
And
matter.
where in the world the president would win with 90+% of the
Yeah.
votes were,
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny because some like one year it would be like 96, and then the next year it would be like 94, and everyone would be like, "Whoa, wait, no, it should be like 97." Everyone was just making jokes about it because every time it's just it's a silly number. Anyway, so let's go on with the timeline. So next, Morsi wins
Yes.
on June 24th of 2012.
12. Yeah.
And then there was a lot of Muslim Brotherhood members in the fabric of the political
Yes.
scene in
He started
Egypt.
to
Yeah,
get
at the
his
time.
group.
And so, around November 22, 2012, we got to see more.
Yeah, like I think at that time, so like we found that he's really like using the power, changing some stuff so that it can favor his group,
Aha.
Yeah,
which make people start considering, okay, I took the wrong decision.
yeah. I think the big thing is he was trying to change the constitution, and that's when people were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Yeah, yeah.
Hold your
Wait,
horses!
wait.
This is the red line here."
So people start really to like go against him. The people like me and my family and my mother, when after we were so happy that we elected him, and then after that we found no. He has his own group's personal interests.
Yeah, there's
We didn't
agendas
feel-
that we
yes,
couldn't
there's an
see.
agenda, yeah. So at that time, people started again. We still were optimistic, like still going on.
Still,
We can change.
Still,
we can
we
change.
have hope. We still have
Yes.
hope.
So I think like like starting from the end of 2012 until next year June 2013, people start to really protest again, and we want him to step down again.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need Morsi. Let's go for the next person.
Like, yeah. Next.
We were
Thank you,
actually
next.
really having okay, let's do it. And this was not actually like we can do it.
Yeah.
We can really do it. So it was something. And in June, I think,
June 30.
June 30. Yeah, this is a big event at that time. Many people like went out to like calling for him to step down. And at that time, I think July, like beginning of July, he actually stepped down. He didn't step down. I think he was just pushed out.
So here's the thing. June 30. There is a lot of names for that, depending on
Who
your
you
political stance.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
people say it's a coup. Some people say it's a revolution. And jury's out, but it could be whichever you want. It could be both at the same time.
And we celebrate this event. Like now, I think in June 30th,
Right. It is a
every
it
year.
Is
Is it an official? Is it an
I think
official
it's an
holiday?
official holiday now, right? People,
yeah.
I mean, we don't celebrate, but it is an official holiday.
It was a short
I
lived.
think it's an official, yeah,
It's an
yeah,
official
it's an
holiday.
official holiday, yeah.
Because the regime wants it to be a revolution,
Yeah.
a coup, obviously.
Yeah, but the serious thing like happened after that. So after he was like stepped down, many people from the Muslim Brotherhood was against what's happening. Like, why you didn't give him the chance? You didn't like he was just here, and of course the army didn't support him that much. And we
Yeah,
had-
they let him fall.
Yes,
they
they
let
let
him
him
fall,
fall.
and they watched him burn.
For us-
They were like,
He was there
Yes.
for a year.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
in such a situation of our country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was very serious, and at that part, starting from July, once he was out of the presidency, until I think August, like 2 months, many people, Muslim Brotherhood and others, also protest and went out to many cities in Egypt, mainly Cairo, in a very famous square called Rab'a al-Adawiyya Square.
Oh yes.
Hundreds, thousands, protesters saying that we don't approve you stepping down Morsi like this way, and we want him back. And this when the police joined again and attacked those people, and many people were like killed there. In Cairo, in Rab'a al-Adawiyya Square, in another city in Giza, it was Midan al-Nahda, Nahda
Yeah.
Square, and in other cities in Egypt.
Yeah.
And this was a very serious massacre. They call it as a massacre because
Yes.
police were shooting people.
Yeah. So what happened in January 25th in the Tahrir Square and also in Rabat, it was actually mostly encampments. People
Yeah,
just
yeah.
put up set tents and they were like, we're not leaving until our demands are met. So we've seen this happen
Yeah.
this year for
Since
Palestine a lot. So they basically did that, but on like a huge scale in Tahrir Square and in Rabat Square. So they did the same in Rabat Square. And then on a certain day, the police was like, okay, that's it. We're dispersing those guys. But so they would call it dispersing in the media. And we're going to talk about this a lot in the like reflections later. They call it dispersing. But what actually happened is that they killed 1,000 protesters
Yeah.
that day. Yeah, it was a massacre, but they called it the dispersing, like Fadraba, dispersing
Yeah,
square.
disperse-
But
yeah,
the
yeah.
actuality of what happened, it was a state-sanctioned massacre, and it was very hard to watch because
Yeah,
the
that was
mainstream
serious.
media at the time did such a good job dehumanizing the people in the Rabat Square to the point that a lot of people didn't even care what happened. A lot of people didn't even know how many people happened. To this day, a lot of people don't know how many people died in Rabat Square because the media made them truly believe that these people aren't humans.
And the media is supported by the regime.
Yeah, the mainstream
Yes.
media. Yeah, it was pushing some serious propaganda. But at the same time, you need to understand that this is a time of freedom of press. There were like the regime aligned ones, but there was
And-
also a very important thing that happened here is Bassem Youssef. Bassem Youssef's program. I think maybe some of you know Bassem Youssef. He's an American Egyptian American comedian.
Yeah.
But he started his show. I think around when the Muslim
During
Brotherhood
this
started
time, yeah,
ruling.
2013 or 2012, yeah.
It was political satire. He was making fun of the Muslim
Very much,
Brotherhood, Sisi,
Regime,
the
the
police,
army,
He
everyone,
was making fun of everyone, and that drove a lot of people insane. They couldn't we're not used to this. We're not used to people bashing everyone, so everyone was like enraged. At the same time, there's Muslim Brotherhood aligned shows on TV, and then there's regime shows on TV. Just so
We were
many mixed
overwhelmed.
messages. Yeah, I feel like Egyptians were so overwhelmed.
We were
They're like,
over-
why
what's
is
going
everyone
on?
saying contradicting things? And because we're not brought up to do some serious critical thinking, it was very hard for people to differentiate who's doing propaganda and who's actually talking about real things. It was a time of real confusion.
Yeah. And this was the first time, January 25, all of us were together. All of us had the same goal.
True.
But in Rabaa Square and this encampment that took place, unfortunately, people were divided into
Yes.
two.
Yes.
And this is very important. And this is the agenda from our army. This is what they did. We were divided into two. Some people think that, yes, the Muslim Brotherhood don't deserve to be the president. So we really want another person, or we want the army. Let's kill those people. Or they are really destroying everything. So this is some group. And another group, even if they are not Muslim Brotherhood, but still we feel, no, we didn't give this president a chance. And still, you are killing each other. So I feel that this was a huge difference between the revolution that we had as a group, and then now we are divided into two. And at that time, I remember when we talked to people, which group he is, before starting to go into it. Are you with Rab'a or are you against what's going on?
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Oh yeah, we were very polarized.
I remember at that time when people for example, if you have Omiyai is kind of common in Egypt. Omiyai is getting to know someone to marry him, introduce him marriage. So for example, if someone came to me and we get to know, the first question, are you with
What's
Rab'a?
your side?
What are
What's
your
your side?
inclinations?
Yes.
Inside of the line.
Yes. So I feel unfortunately this really divided the
As
the
our very good friend Anthony says, it is the good old divide and conquer.
This is how
It
it
worked
works.
like a charm.
And it
worked like that.
Yeah.
Now, within this division and this year-ish that existed between the first protest and the election, was there any clear alternative? Was there anyone stepping forward, or was there still...
There were a lot of
I
parties.
think, yes.
There were a lot of
many
political
people.
parties.
Yes.
Yeah, and everyone was voicing their opinion, but politically, the Muslim Brotherhood had the most seats, and they just had a lot of say in the decisions. But yeah, a lot of these people were actually we should just wait until the next elections, and then we can elect someone else, not just oust whoever is here. So yeah, there was a clear division in the camps. But yeah, that all the Rabaa massacre and all of this was in 2013, and then most of the Muslim Brotherhood officials were eventually first off, it was redesignated as a terrorist organization.
Yeah. So I think by the end of the year 2013,
it was designated.
announced that this is terrorist.
Yeah, it was designated as a terrorist
And many
organization.
people, many Muslim Brotherhood, rich people, they were really good status. Many of them left the country, went to Turkey, went to Malaysia, and they start really leaving the country. They found that they cannot survive. So our neighbors actually left.
Yes, me
they
too.
Were
You could clearly see that at a certain time frame, everyone was like, chop, chop, we're leaving.
just leave.
If we stay, we'll get disappeared. There is no future for us here. So yeah, that happened. And then Sisi became president in May of 2014.
Yeah, 2014. Yeah.
Actually, he was sworn in June 8 of 2014.
I do have a quick question for you. So you were watching this transpire on TV, you were part, with your neighbors were involved, everyone was involved. Was it for you, being able to vote for the first time? Was that transformative, not just because earlier you were part of the movement, you were seeing this happening, but also once you were able to vote for the first time?
Yes.
And was this also, I imagine, there was the shared hopefulness.
Yes. And we felt responsibility. I really felt that my vote will do something.
I agree.
Even the young, everyone. And we were discussing during the election, who did you vote for? Why? And we started discussing things that we never thought about. Thought about discussing And if someone is going to vote to the other party, we try to talk and convince. If someone will cancel his vote, why? Tell me what. It was a lot of hopes, and many generations are talking, and that's why I feel it was a huge transformation in the Middle East in our minds that we have a voice. It works. Yeah.
Yeah, I think each and everyone in my family voted for a different person.
Yes, that was
and there was
the
a lot
best
of
part.
discussions
Everyone
at home, it was so new. Sitting down and talking about that was just very new to us.
Very new to us. Yes. Yeah. And we had the pink. Remember, the pink finger.
Oh yeah, the pinky.
The pinky.
Everyone was walking around hey, I voted.
So when you vote, to make sure that those person votes, you have to dip your finger in an ink, pink ink.
So that you can't vote again in another place.
And it stays for few days.
Yeah, it was,
And then really everyone posted the photo. That was trending on
I
social
still
media.
have it on my Facebook. Yeah, it has a sense of pride with it.
Yes.
This is actually a Mexican invention.
Oh!
This ink for voting.
Really? Okay, thank you.
Democracy.
Thank you, Mexico.
Thank you, Mexico. Yeah.
What about Syria? What was? Let's go back.
Okay.
Yeah. What was going on? How
The
were you
situation-
seeing this?
The situation in Syria was very different than this story.
Oh.
From the very beginning, we didn't go out to the street calling for stepping down of the president or something. We thought that we are so far from this. So we only wanted freedom. That was the first thing we asked for, freedom. We were chanting for freedom, freedom. But then after this happened in Daraa, where children got killed, and then protests spread all over Syria, first of all, our protests were immediately faced with violence and killing of people, a lot of killing of people.
Extreme repression.
Yes, so, and I would say one story that happened in a village called Al-Bayda. It's, I heard the story from a previous detainee in the Syrian regime. His name is Omar Shugri. And I'm telling the story to tell you how the regime started sectarianism in Syria. So they went to protest for those children who died. And then, of course, the military came and they started. We also call this Al-Bayda massacre because they put all protesters on the ground and they started stepping on them. And with the everything they had, they were like
The batons.
yeah, they had their faces were stuck on the street, you know, because they were putting all the pressure on them. Many people died, and then those who survived, they took them to another village. Al-Bayda village was mainly Sunni, and the next village was Christians. So they took them there. They took all men of that village to the Christian village, and they started torturing them there. So Omar Shiri was saying that when he was getting tortured, suddenly the hitting became very soft and very slow. And then he was like, what's happening? Is he having mercy on me? And then he heard a voice. He was like, son, go harder. And then he looked back, and it was like 6-year-old kid. And they were like, they were coming to kill you. Hit him.
A Syrian boy.
Yeah. A Syrian young
Just a Syrian young
Yeah,
boy.
a Syrian young boy, but he was Christian. He was like, those are from the other village. They were coming to kill you. And then women came and they started torturing them because they were afraid they are coming to rape them. And this is why all those Sunnis are coming after those Christians. But then Syrians rejected that. They were like, no, we would never be like that. So I remember one person who was, because that village was put under a siege with no food and nothing. So, but one Christian person was allowed to enter. So when he was entering, he was bringing bread to that city. But because he was bringing bread, he got killed by the Syrian regime. So he was Christian, but to show them that Christian and Muslims are one, they did his funeral both in a mosque and in a church to show solidarity.
The people
that
who
you
were
can
resisting.
never,
The
you can
people
never
were
do this
resisting
to us.
the sectarianism.
Yeah, but I would say this was the start of making them feel, oh, those from the other group are coming after us. So that, because everyone was going after the government.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh no, we need
Divide and conquer.
divide
Yeah,
them.
we have to.
We
You gotta
shouldn't
use the
give
good
them
old
one.
divide and conquer
Yeah,
here.
they divided us by religion, by region, where are you living, rural countries, city center. They started dividing us in every possible way. So I would say that protests started growing, and then the military started killing more. So people who were in the military were normal people, because we men in our country have to go to military once they are 18
Yeah.
or
Same
after
with
they
Egypt.
finish
Yeah,
graduation.
it's mandatory
So
service.
those who were killing people, maybe they had to kill their families. So they were like, okay, we're leaving the military, but you're not allowed to do that. So once you do that, you become wanted. You know, you're doing something illegal.
Right.
But this is where Free Syrian Army started.
Decompose.
Yeah, so people started having those from the Free Syrian Army to protect them while they were having protests. So protests started to become longer. You know how our protests were like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But then with someone protecting them, it started becoming like 1 hour or
So
2
the
hours.
Free Syrian Army is basically people who were in the regular
Yes.
army but just decided
but
to make
yeah,
their own.
they were like, we're not gonna kill our people anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So they started protecting the people in the beginning. And then those Free Syrian Army started controlling some rural areas, of course, not in the city center, like in Damascus or in the city center of Aleppo, of course not, but in the rural areas or countryside.
I think the uprisings in the rural areas is a big difference between Egypt and Syria. There was a lot more action going on in rural areas in
Yeah.
Syria
Yes.
than Egypt.
Yes.
Egypt it was mostly like the bigger
Yeah.
cities. I think it was the biggest.
But
Well,
I think
for
Syria, they
us-
cannot do that. So maybe it started from
No.
the...
It's just that they control us very well in the city center.
Yes.
You
can't-
That's why you
can't
cannot.
do
You
anything
just cannot,
in the
you know.
capital. Yeah.
Yeah,
So do it
you're in
somewhere
more
else.
danger.
Yeah.
In rural areas, there are more like closer families to each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Everyone knows each other.
Yeah,
So
there's
if
a
there's
sense of
anyone
community.
that is
Yeah.
from the government, they know that's the
Yeah.
person. You know.
Yeah.
But in the city center, it's different.
Mm.
So I would say people kept trying to protest. The Syrian regime kept trying to kill those
Squash
people
it,
and
yeah.
like detain as much as they can. And then it suddenly like turned into a war. They call it civil war, but I can never say that it's a civil war. You know, it's the government that is killing the people. I cannot call it
Yeah.
a civil war. So from 2012, I think the bombing started, the airstrikes.
Yeah.
We had
That
in
was
Syria. In Syria, we had 222 chemical attacks, and no one have done anything about this. You know, it's internationally illegal, but 222 is not even a small number. You know, we had the first chemical attack in 2013. A lot of people died. They call it as if it's the last day on earth, because people were sleeping. It was in the middle of the night, and then suddenly they started choking, and the whole area was bombed with chemicals and a chemical called sarin, and hundreds of people died, maybe thousands, and that area was under siege, so they cannot get medical treatment. Even doctors were dying because they were also attacked. So people got very emotional.
And they don't
with
know
this.
what is this. They even don't
No,
know
no,
what.
no. How to protect yourself from
Exactly,
it.
we don't know.
We have no idea. So you can see that the response from the government is very different from Egypt. You know, it was brutal.
So we were talking about the
we're
attacks,
We're back.
the attacks that happened in
Yeah.
Syria, the chemical attacks.
Yeah, so
There were 238,
222.
222.
Yeah, those are the ones counted officially.
That was
And
by the Bashar regime and forces
Yeah, yeah,
against
yeah.
the people
of course,
Syria.
of course, and like I would say,
Let me just say this again: 222 chemical attacks by the government to its
Yeah.
own people.
yeah.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about like any other normal airstrikes and bombing. We level up, you know. Those things are always happening.
Yeah, aside from the bombing,
Yeah, like
This
those,
is not your usual bombing.
extra. We're like fancy people. We love chemical
Yeah.
attacks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we had just gunshots, but you really get like really high level. Yeah,
We go from the skies. We go.
Technology.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it may have not been civil
You had
war,
fun
but it
for
was
that.
definitely war.
It is
was
a war.
war
It
levels
is
a
of
war.
destruction and killing.
With the
I remember
the amount
that.
of destruction is definitely a war. So those people who were against the government were suddenly like those in the city center. They were getting detained. Those who were kind of protected were under the Free Syrian Army in the rural areas, so they became under a siege. No food, no electricity, no water, no nothing. And the siege, I'm not talking about like a day or two. It was like for years, a year, 2, 3 years. They survived for a while because they had their farms. They had their vegetables happening. Most of them were farmers, so they
But no
survived.
one was coming in or out.
Yeah, no. But they survived for a while, but then they start running out of food. They started like no water. You cannot live without water. Electricity, that's a fancy thing. We don't
Yeah.
think about electricity. And then the bombing. You fight for your land. You have patience. I'm gonna survive without food for my land, and then your land start going away. Your family is being bombed. Everyone is getting killed. In Syria, the numbers, the official numbers, they say that around 203,000 people, 200,000 plus people got killed in Syria, and then 40 million displaced. That's almost
That's in
half
the course of
half-
how many years?
Yeah. That's this happened between 2011 and 2016, I would say.
200,000.
40 million displaced.
14 million. 14 millions.
14 million,
14.
yeah.
14.
And
14
200,000.
million
Yeah.
and 200,000.
Those are the official numbers.
Oh, yeah.
But you
Right.
can never know.
Yeah, you
what
can
the
never
real
know.
numbers are. We're 100% sure that they are way more. And then there is like around 113,000 disappeared, unknown. Like where are they? Forget about the detainees.
Yeah.
There's
You
no
don't know,
actual
yeah.
numbers. In every family, there's a person who died, a person who is detained, a person who's unknown. In each family in Syria. So the situation was, you can see it's very different from Egypt. And then Iran started, with the Syrian army losing some of his people. And so you need someone to support you. And bombing your people for like years, you will definitely need support from other countries. Iran joined, Russia joined.
Bombing your people.
Yeah, so you need help, you can't do that on your own.
Hezbollah
So,
as
yeah.
all the typical actors, all the
Yes.
the usual actors are
Yes.
in.
One funny story, I would say that how would the government play some games like to let the people believe that they are the one to rescue you. Is I remember my friend from a city called Al-Raqqa. They used to have like the Syrian military there, and there were like checkpoints
Okay.
under their house, and they know the people who are on the checkpoint because they see them every day. That city is a rich in oil city,
Okay.
and everyone knows each other there. So in a day and
So
another,
those people in the checkpoints are like army.
military,
Military,
Syrian
okay,
military,
Syrian.
yes. So one day they woke up, they checked those people down. They're wearing black. Okay, what's happening? They're like, why they changed
They're
their style?
different.
And then, oh, ISIS is here. They are in the city. And they were like, wait, but those are the face we see every day. Like, we know who are those people. And they were like, no, those are ISIS. You should be careful. People stopped going out of their homes. They're like, ISIS is in the city. And I wouldn't have known this without this friend telling me this. I really believe that ISIS existed in Syria.
So the regime army
Yeah.
overnight became ISIS.
Became an ISIS, and you need someone to fight for ISIS. You need Russia, you need US. And the funny thing is, ISIS only exists in oil-rich cities, and in a city rich in history like Tadmur, very rich culturally.
Yeah, they will not. Yeah.
So what
This is
ISIS,
suspicious.
yeah,
This is-
choose
I'm very
those
familiar.
cities, and then US have to intervene there,
Of course.
because ISIS. Russia need to
Okay,
intervene
come.
there because ISIS, and somehow they only exist there, and with all of this happening, you still find Syrians who doesn't know what actually happened. Because in our
Yeah.
homes, we were terrified to open the TV and watch what's happening. I remember we had Al Jazeera, but we changed the name in the TV list because if they come to your house and they see you have Al Jazeera, they would detain you.
Oh.
So,
How do you
like,
do that?
my father used to work in this, so I don't know, he did it. He was
Space too, like a kid.
yeah, I
You
can
can
change
the
it.
channels
I
now.
don't know how.
The name,
just
I think,
saw my
yeah,
father
yeah.
doing it,
Yeah, there was some major censorship, I guess,
Yes,
going on to
yes.
the point that the people themselves are
Yeah.
oblivious.
In Syria, no one has a Facebook account with his full name or with his picture on. It's
Nickname.
wherever it is there, it's recorded on you. They watch you whatever you do. So people who used to speak about what's happening are people who are putting their lives on the line. Like, okay, I'm giving up on life. I'm gonna talk. Because there is no media that's in Syria. No journalist enters Syria. They would die. They would disappear. They would get detained on the borders. That's for sure. So we only have the government media, which is showing that those are ISIS. Those are people who came from outside. Those are outsiders. You don't belong to them. They don't belong to you. They are coming here to ruin the country, to make you fear, to kill your children. So
When in reality,
Yeah.
its own people just resisting
yeah,
the
we
oppression
were
of the
like
government.
neighbors. We're the same people.
It's interesting because a very similar thing was happening in Egypt also, especially in the beginning, the first 18 days of the revolution.
Yeah.
There was the encampment, right? And there was a lot of people in the Tahrir Square, obviously, all political views, all sorts of different people. And then the regime, the mainstream media started portraying that the people in there aren't even Egyptian. They're like, they're foreigners.
Yeah, for
I swear to God, they were like, they're
On the
Hamas.
scene.
They're Hamas.
How?
These guys are not even Egyptian.
Like-
And also they were like, the people, there are girls and guys in these camps together.
Yeah.
How do you know what they're doing? Who
Oh
are
my
these
God.
people? If these are not Egyptians.
Yes.
And like there was like this insane like campaign against the people that they aren't real Egyptians. They were people that you don't want to associate with. So yeah, it is very similar.
Very similar, yeah.
I was once with my brother in a protest, and I was, I think, 14 or 15. My brother was like around 6 or 7, and the police came and we started running away from the protest. Like once the police comes, you need to
You
run.
have to, just run.
Yeah.
Even me and my brother were like children, you know.
Aw.
But then we started running. We were hiding our faces, of course. And then people started shouting on us from the windows, outsiders. Go away,
Wow.
outsiders.
Go away.
And
Who
I'm
are
like,
you?
what would a 6 years old child, and like me, I was 15, like how are we outside? We definitely look like you. We are from this area.
Outside
you
from
know?
where?
It's
Yeah,
just
go
the
away,
media.
outsiders.
The media just
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of reprogrammed their brains.
They felt
to
like
think
we
that
are
way.
putting them under a threat, you know. Just go away, stop protesting. So very, very complicated, I would say. No one knows what's happening. You only know if you have the courage to ask or to look up yourself, and you would know that once you start looking for answers, you're putting your life on the
risk.
line. You know, it's in a risk. For example, my family, I would say something very personal. We were luckily we were in Damascus in the city center, so it was kind of safe, no bombing at least near my house. But those who were being displaced from rural areas, they are coming to Damascus without anything, without clothes, without food. So we were a group of people started like a volunteer team. Okay, we're gonna give those people food. We're gonna give them clothes. You know, they need something to survive. Let's share our homes until they find a home. And surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly for me, but for you, like my family became wanted. We're helping terrorists.
Oh.
You know, those people who got displaced, they started calling them terrorists. You know, we shouldn't be helping them, and we had to flee the country simply for giving food.
You were
and
called terrorists because you were helping the displaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The Syrians.
simply because of that, so we had to flee the country. Otherwise, you will be detained and never know what will happen to you. And then, okay, the refugee journey will start, and that's a whole different story.
But yeah, I actually, I think one thing that we can draw on from here is that in the Syrian story, there is no like conclusion to what happened in a sense. Like there was no like coup and that was that. It is still happening to this day.
Yes.
Like it continues.
There's
every day.
one thing that happened, I think, in 2016 when
Okay.
those siege areas have lost hope. They had an agreement with the government that we will send everyone in those areas to the northwest Syria. So in 2016, they started emptying all rural areas that are full of people who are against the government and send them to the north. They used to send them with government buses, transportation, green buses.
That's some Auschwitz stuff.
Yeah, so we always have like the scene that comes to your mind when you hear a green bus is that all those people being taken out of their homes and being, you know,
Going to the
displaced to North Syria. And now North Syria holds around like 6 million refugees, those Syrian refugees inside Syria.
Is it like a concentration camp there where they're like under a siege, they're like no one can come in or out?
Yeah, so once you are in the north, you cannot go out.
Okay.
You know, it shares borders with Turkey. There are people who went to Turkey illegally. Of course, you don't know what happens on the way. You might die. Those who take risk, either you arrive or die. You know, better die trying, or you stay in refugees camps in the north. You know,
But are those like refugee camps in the north or?
you literally have camps,
Like
Camps.
tents. Yeah.
But is this like because this is like forced deportation, you know,
Yeah.
of its own people,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
what I'm picturing, you
Yeah.
know, is like a concentration camp,
Yes.
not just displaced people.
They live like terrible life conditions. Like it's inhuman there. You know, you
So
only
for
get
how long? Since 2000?
since 2016 until
16.
now. Those camps are still there. Those who are
People can't go home. They're
no,
stuck there.
there's
The
no
tents.
once you're there, there's no way out. Either you put your life on risk and then go to Turkey,
Yeah.
which have stopped, I think.
So it's a concentration camp, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming there's no foreign refugee aid organization going in.
The UN has some projects there. Yes,
Okay.
through Syrian NGOs that are based in
Turkey.
So from Turkey, there.
Yeah, so they give aids through Turkey. But the thing is, there is a cross-border law to give aid from Turkey to Syria they have been trying to stop for the past years, and each 6 months they renew it, and then they discuss should we keep it or not. So refugees there never know what will happen to them because they are under threat that aid might end anyway, anytime. And the aid they get is like a bit of food baskets, something for hygiene.
So they're just living day by day. They just survive.
Yes, there's no jobs opportunities or like normal life conditions, electricity, blah blah. No, you forget about that. There you need to survive.
But is everyone like 100% dependent on this aid?
No, of course, like people
Some of
wants
them
to survive. There are some farming lands there. There are those who, like Syrian NGOs who are based in Turkey, has their offices in the north to help people. So they work for NGOs who are in Turkey. Some people have their own shops, People used to live in that area,
so
but the majority are refugees.
Displaced.
The majority depends on those aid that are coming through Turkey, I would say.
So earlier you were saying that every family has someone that was killed in this protest or disappeared.
Yes.
Is it the same? That every family has someone that is being forcibly displaced in this area?
I would say those who are forcibly displaced are from the rural areas of Damascus, from Homs, a city called Homs, from rural areas of Aleppo. So not every family has someone displaced there, I would say, because those who are in Damascus weren't forcibly displaced there. There were people, I would say, in the city centers who, they say, we were living. Why are you even doing this revolution? They don't understand. They don't understand.
We're fine.
Why are you putting your life on the line?
so
Why
mad?
do you want to put us all under threat? We know the government. They have been here like for 50 plus years, We know what happens to those who speak up. Just let us live.
Stay silent.
It's no way that they will go there. Those are people who are like, keep us living like that, And those, I would say, people who are brainwashed that we are actually outsiders. There's still, until this day,
Oh yeah,
people
definitely.
who are with the Syrian government. With all of this.
there are a lot.
Yes, of course.
In Syria.
In Syria, yes. In Syria and outside.
Outside of Syria.
In Syria, outside.
They're
There
everywhere.
are people who say, oh,
Support the regime.
both,
Many people
both
support
sides
it.
are bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
All lives matter.
I hate this.
Of course.
Yes.
I think our special executive producer of the day, Anthony, had a question.
I do. My question is more or less on like the legal status for, because you were discussing sharing some information very, very personal in terms of the family and also the refugee status. I want to understand if, like, because I see it as a very complicated things, because on the one side, Assad is still managing and controlling a significant area of Syria, and is still recognized as the president,
Yes.
as a political system.
Yes.
On the other side, there are countries that do not recognize that political entity, that his regime, as anything that should be representative of the country. Where does that leave Syrian citizens, especially the ones in exile or the ones in forced exile and that are forced to live with the status of refugees? So how do they, like, if you want to renew your passport,
Yeah.
what happens? What
I
is
have a very interesting update for you.
Oh.
From the last time we talked about
I
this.
know this
Most people
update.
don't know that
We love an
Yeah.
update.
most
This
people
is-
do not
this
know
is
that we
really
have
like
this
a-
conversation.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
if
God.
you want to like give like a background,
Okay. This is
imagine our audience, they do
Yeah.
not know.
Yeah.
So
if you think that the struggle ends when a person leaves the country and live in a safe place, you're probably very, very mistaken.
Delusion.
It never ends there. Once you are a refugee, there are like 100 million challenges
The problem starts.
coming in front of you. So let me tell you a bit about the Syrian refugees, how they left Syria. There are some people who were wanted from the government, so they only have to go illegally. in the early days, they used to go illegally to Lebanon or to Turkey. Those are the only countries that you can cross borders to. The other way is that you go legally. You are allowed to cross the borders. So you actually leave to Lebanon, and then from Lebanon you leave to any other countries, because you cannot travel from Syria directly to countries other than Lebanon, because they had sanction over them. So like you cannot fly. So you should go like to Lebanon first, and from Lebanon you can travel anywhere. Many people go to Turkey, and then from Turkey they go illegally to Europe through the sea. So they go on refugee boats, and they go to Greece, and then they start crossing borders, walking. Many die on the way. Some people settle in Turkey. They don't leave to Europe. Let me tell you about my own experience, because I used to live in Turkey. In Turkey, you have two options. If you came, you can have the temporary protection card, which is like a refugee status. Or if you came by airplane, then you are not a refugee. You know, you came legally to our country, then we're gonna give you a tourist residency. So you're there like as a tourist. But they know you're Syrian, they know you are refugee, but your legal status is a tourist.
You had a passport, so you enter.
Yes.
So
yeah, that and I would say that changed. Like in the beginning, I would say until 2000, maybe 15, they were giving everyone the temporary protection card. But then they were like, no, those are coming legally, so we should give them like a tourist. They are not refugees. In order to have, let me talk first about the temporary protection. What happens if you get temporary protection card? First of all, you cannot move within Turkey from a city to another without a permission from the Turkish government. You need to take a travel permit to travel, because you're a refugee. You need to say where are you going. You get, of course, like free medical treatment, which is a huge positive point for Syrians at that time, because many of them went to Turkey actually wounded, and they needed a lot of medical treatment. But you are actually being trapped and controlled with anything you want to do. And then once you leave the country, if you want to leave Turkey, for example, you have to give away your the card, and then they will ban you, for example, for 5 years or something, depending on the...
If you decided to leave Turkey.
Yeah, because you are giving
away this kind of protection card.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah, so we're not going to let you go.
Like, okay, so you don't need protection anymore.
The temporary protection has no limit.
Forever. So, yeah, as long as you stay in Turkey, you will have it.
You have it. The other way is that you have a tourist residency.
So, is it half-half? Like, what is the... most of the Syrian refugees in Turkey?
I don't know the...
But you know some people
numbers.
with tourist visa, and you know some people with the protection.
I would say those who, after 2015, all have the tourist
visa. Okay, okay,
Unless you come legally, which became very rare, because the borders became very strict.
Okay.
Is a tourist visa indefinitely?
No.
Oh, we're just beginning.
Yes.
This is the...
Okay.
So, in order to get the tourist visa, you need your passport. And you can renew it for 1 or 2 years, depending on how much you have in your passport. Syrian men, because they have to go to military, and they left their country to not go to military, to not kill people. Because they did this, they ran away from military. They only give them 2 years in their passport. So if a Syrian man want to renew his tourist residency and he have a passport with 2 years, so they give it to you with like 3 months less than your passport expiration date. So you have like 1 year and a half kind of residency, and then within this 1 year and a half you have to renew your passport again, and then apply again, and then you keep going in this loop every year and a half for Syrian men. If you're lucky, like to give you 1.5, sometimes they decide to give you 1 year. That's up to them.
And for women?
Women, they get 6 years. If you have nothing if you're not wanted,
if you're like,
if you are legally fine, you get 6 years.
6 years of passport. Okay.
And by the way, our passport is the most expensive passport in the world. Even though it's ranked #1 worst passport.
Oh no!
We always get #1. The worst, the most expensive.
Oh my god! I didn't know.
We're
that.
ahead of everyone.
What happens if,
Yeah.
for example, if you're a man of military age
Yeah.
that do not want to serve in the military, but now need to renew your passport,
Yes.
and you go back to the same authority that you ran away from. What
So-
will happen there? Second question.
Okay.
If you're wanted, if you're a woman and you're wanted, but you still have to renew your passport, the thing that identifies you as a Syrian, the thing that says you exist, that document,
Yes.
you have to go to the same regime, the same embassy of the same regime that kicked you out. There is, first of all, an emotional. You have to reconcile
Yes,
that
yes,
you're going to.
yes, yes.
I don't like you, but I need something from you.
Yeah.
But then you go to the embassy, and the embassy recognizes, oh, you're the person we're looking for, or you're wanted
Yeah.
because there is a bank. What is that relationship like? What happens in these two scenarios?
So how it used to be is that they are allowed to renew their passports. Since they are outside the
Yeah,
country,
outside.
they don't have the power to detain you or take you or do anything to you. But of course, your mental status at that time is terrible, you know. Once you enter the embassy, before you see the Syrian flag, you see a big picture of Bashar al-Assad. He's right there, you know, looking at you. Without even...
War
criminal.
Yeah, we don't care about the flag. What a flag, you know.
The blue eyes.
Yeah, the blue eyes.
The blue eyes.
Yeah, so how it used to be is that everyone was allowed to renew their passport. Of course, you get a bad treatment when you're there, whether you're wanted or not. You know, they treat people as something I don't want to mention. But this month, there is a new law from the Syrian government that
This
will.
is the update.
Yes, this is the update. That starting from June, anyone who ran away from the military or anyone who is have some legal issues cannot renew their passport unless they go back to Syria and fix their legal status.
Oh.
That's a trap.
We don't know what will happen. This came out
That's
like
a
3
trap.
days ago, and we were like, then what will happen now? And
Oh my god.
that means like
Fresh
all
off the press.
Syrian men are now in this situation, and Syrians cannot renew their residency anywhere in the world without their passport. We're
Yeah,
nothing
no,
without
it
our
wouldn't- yeah.
passport, you know.
Isn't that where you get like the refugee status?
If you
Yeah.
can, that's
Yeah,
so. If you are in Europe, it's different from Turkey, for example. If you are in Europe and you have the refugee card, the travel document, you don't need your passport. But if you have any kind of residency, then you definitely need your passport. And in Turkey, if you came illegally and you have the temporary protection card, you don't need your passport, so you're safe.
Okay. So,
But if you have the tourist residency, you
Your
definitely
passport.
need your
Yeah.
passport. You know?
Uh,
So now what will happen? No one knows. We're all shocked.
it's limbo.
We don't know if this will actually, like, are they serious? Like, this is
Yeah,
no
are
way
they
because,
serious?
you know, how many? We have around 6 million refugees, Syrian refugees all over the world. They will all have to go through this.
And there are also like Syrian men that are born outside of Syria, or that were kids, but now at
Now
an
they are
adult
grown.
age,
Yes.
military age, and maybe if their family is historically connected to any kind of resistance that has nothing to do with them,
Yeah.
what does that have? I mean,
Yeah. So now we don't know what the future holds for Syrian refugees. We are literally not expecting anything that will happen in the near future. Turkey is also surprising us with new laws. They are like, okay, no more tourist residency. You know, you need to either have work permit, which they will not give you even if you work, you know, because they don't want to. Even if they give you, they might give it to you for 3 months, and then you have to renew it every 3 months. Or you have a family residency. How do you have a family residency? One of the family members
should have
should have work permit, and this applies for your children who are under 18. So, for example, my family in Turkey, it's my mom, dad, and my brother who is 20 years old. And my brother, because he's a refugee, he's not getting the chance to go to university. So he doesn't have a student status, nor like work permit, and he's above 18, so he cannot have a family residency. Then where does he go? That's the question. And where? Well, literally, there is no option. So we don't know. So, like in the past month was very chaotic for Syrians because in Lebanon, Syrians are being deported. Many,
Yeah.
how many? Like I
Lebanon
think
now they have
300,000 were deported back to Syria, and many of them died on the borders. on the borders,
Yeah,
like without
Lebanon
even
are going
entering.
hard with
Yeah,
the
in Iraq
deportations.
they are deporting Syrians, and in Turkey they have just started deporting
That's
Syrians.
illegal to just begin with because internationally you cannot deport people who have fear of persecution.
Yeah, but those who are being deported in Turkey have tourist residency. You cannot say they are refugees. In Lebanon and in Iraq, they don't have refugee status. Syrians there are illegal because they don't have something they can apply for. So, like legally,
The system doesn't
you cannot
exist.
tell them this is wrong.
The system doesn't exist.
They are tourists, and they don't,
But where do they deport them to? Back to
Syria.
Syria.
I think that's illegal.
Yeah.
It's
Come
illegal.
back.
But it's not under the. That's illegal in Europe because there is an agreement. But in those countries, this agreement is.
There has
No,
to
like-
be a system
Yeah.
for
No,
it
in
to
general,
be.
like in international law, as a refugee or as an asylum seeker, you seek asylum based on political persecution, religious, sexual, a
Power,
few
and
other
yeah.
criteria, and if there is clear and evident danger of bodily harm, threats, or
No, you are not.
whatever.
Yeah.
So if you can prove that if you go back, your life will be like in danger, that's the one thing.
Prove that you are in danger.
But you
I
need
can
to
literally tell you my country does not exist.
No, but
Whoa.
you
Bashar
need to
Assad
be
is there.
recognized as
He has
asylum
blue
seekers
eyes.
to
Yeah.
begin with.
That's the first
If
thing.
they don't, if in that country, this doesn't exist,
Yeah, that is the first thing. Is that, like, for example, if you go, like, for me to be, I don't need, if I'm Syrian, for example, I don't need to prove that I'm an asylum seeker. Like, I don't need to prove it to you because literally your country, wherever that country is, Italy, Colombia, Venezuela, Malawi, whatever, whichever country, looking back to what is happening in Syria, they know that
They
that is
know.
a failed
Yeah.
state. So they have that responsibility
Yes.
and international responsibility. So I don't need to summon them
But they
for them to see
declared
it. But I need to prove that I'm
Damascus.
Syrian.
They declared Damascus as a safe place,
Uh-huh.
so they can go back to Damascus.
Go back. Yeah.
If those in the north of Kiev, if it's not safe, you go to Damascus. No more bombing there. It's only the Syrian regime there, because
and what is in the context of Japan in which we are right now is
in Japan there is no refugee
Refugee,
status
yeah.
for Syrians. Like Syrians, first of all, Syrians who are here are very few. And those who come here only come with student visa or something. You cannot enter Japan for refugee reasons. And so those who were able to enter here came through another legal status, and which actually made us feel way better. Like I think I overcome most of my traumas when I came to Japan, because I was like living a normal life. I was treated as a normal person. I wasn't treated as a refugee. Even when I was in Turkey, when I used to hear airplanes, I had the same fear, because I remember how when I hear them in Syria, I know that if they are not bombing me, they are
with someone
Yeah.
bombing someone else.
When my family moved from Gaza to Cairo about 10 years ago, they were also saying the same thing. They thought it was very strange to sleep without the sound of planes or drones or bombing.
Yes.
It was very eerie to them. Like the silence was also scary. Like what's gonna
This is
happen?
normal?
Next?
Is
Is it
this-
gonna
yeah.
be us next? It was
Yes.
There's a lot of like trauma and things to overcome after living like that for a very long time.
And then when I was in Turkey, you are surrounded by a huge Syrian community. So whenever we meet someone, they suddenly start talking about their son who died, or how
There's
their
always a story.
daughter got detained or raped, or this child has no parents. So we are always surrounded by the stories. So we never overcome the traumas we had. But when I came here, I saw like there is like a normal life here. Like, what is that?
It is very strange.
Am I
It must be
only a
very
student?
eerie.
I don't know how to introduce myself. Like when they say, where are you from? Okay, I'm from Syria, but I lived in Turkey. Am I a refugee anymore? Kinda. I don't know.
Would
You're in
would they
limbo.
even know here
You're
where
in
is
limbo.
Syria?
I think they.
This is why I started introducing myself as a Syrian refugee, because I want to tell this story. It feels very unfair that no one knows, and you should keep speaking up because it's still happening.
Yes.
The world started forgetting, and now they are
It's not
declaring
history.
Damascus
It's not history.
as
It's
a
still
safe
happening.
area, and I'm like, No, we should
No.
keep talking. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We would like to go into the kind of final part of the
Okay.
podcast, specifically the conclusions and parallels that we want to draw on. So, we're not here to tell you to do a revolution or to not do a revolution. We're not here to tell you that. But we are here to show you examples of revolutions, and you can draw your own conclusions from it. But we will help you a little bit and tell you what we think are some conclusions and parallels. We have some bullet points over here. I'm gonna go through them. We already went through some of them while we were talking, but a lot of them, by the way, are for Egypt, but also a lot of them apply for other things, Syria and Palestine and many other places. For Egypt, I think the first thing I want to talk about is the divide and conquer part of the tactics that happen when you start a revolution, right? For Egypt, it was the Muslim Brotherhood versus what they. It's very funny for me as someone who lived in Egypt for a very long time. Egypt is just a spectrum of like religiousness, like how religious you are. But when you talk to people at that time during the revolution, the Muslim Brotherhood people were calling the non-Muslim Brotherhood people the seculars, which is ridiculous because the seculars are also very religious. They're just ideologically different from what you know what I mean? It's a spectrum of people who are all religious, Christians and Muslims. Most people in Egypt are religious people. So there is no, you can't, as like this, the quote unquote seculars would be like the Islamists. And the Islamists would be like the quote unquote seculars. I'm like, guys, we're all the same. This is so stupid.
Yes.
We all believe in pretty much the same things. But it was very important, I think, for the regime and for the mainstream media to really augment that part and show people how different they are. Because it's an essential part of pitting people against each other, right? To show them, to focus on how different they are, not how similar they are.
Yes.
And it worked so well, especially because the freedom of press was so
It works
new.
everywhere.
Yeah,
It
you
worked
just
in Syria.
you just listen to people talk about it and you believe it because of the lack of critical thinking. And voila, you're divided and you are conquered. Congratulations.
And this is what's picked up by Western media, you know,
Yes.
the divide between
Yes.
religious side and secular,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, but I said, secular, it's good. We support that. Muslim Brotherhood, bad.
They're all the same. It's a, you think of the spectrum as like people who are miles away. No. The spectrum is like 2 inches.
Yeah.
The center and the left and the right are just inches apart. This is an illusion. This is meant to make you feel that you're different.
And I think it failed in the issue with Gaza and Palestine now, that everyone, it didn't work this time. So like everyone, all the religions, the backgrounds, the gender, the sexuality of the people, everyone like into one side.
Genocide is genocide.
Yes. So it's really interesting that, I don't know like why, but I can tell that, in our countries, we were divided. Really, they had the agenda to divide us. But this time, they cannot. They really cannot.
But that's what I'm saying. We need to learn to see the patterns of, for example, the divide and conquer maneuver, because we are now united, right? But who knows? In a couple of months, they could do something to pit you against each other, and voila, you're divided again.
See.
We have to be able to see the patterns. We have to be able to critically see whoever entities are trying to divide us and be like, nah, we've seen this before. You're trying to divide us. We're not going to let you do it again.
We knew it.
Yeah. I think that's why it's very important to see the patterns with things like that. There's a lot of things that unite us. We should not look at the things that divide us. It's easier said than done, obviously. But it needs a lot of work and a lot of compromise and a lot of fighting. But that's okay. That is okay. But you fight amongst each other, and then a third party comes and pulls the rug underneath you, and that's the end. Everything you did, all the people that died are in vain.
Yes.
But yeah, that is the first part for me. The second part is propaganda. Propaganda. Oh my god.
Everywhere. It's everywhere.
Regime propaganda. In the beginning of the Egyptian
Media propaganda.
revolution, you have the mainstream news channels, right? And then you have Al Jazeera. You look at the mainstream news channels, and they're like, there's like 100 people in the Tahrir Square, and then you'd switch to Al Jazeera. There's like 1 million people in there, and it's so easy to see that the mainstream media is trying to tell you what's happening. That's not what's happening. We see there's 1 million people in there. But they will, through propaganda, try to, first off, tell you that the number of protesters is not what they are. Number two, smear the protesters, say that they are outsiders, they don't want good, they are Islamists, they're Hamas. They will do something to smear the protesters. And that's exactly what they're doing to the students at the encampments right now. They're smearing them. They're trying to say that they're terrorists, they're trespassing, they're not even students. They're trying to find a way to show you that these kids in the encampments are not the real people, are not the voice of the people.
But I thought it was already agreed that these students were Hamas.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Right?
yeah.
This
Obviously.
18, 20-year-old, in reached, Columbia University. It's Hamas,
Definitely,
right?
yeah.
Headquarters there.
Just like with the Syrian army when they went to sleep and they woke up ISIS. Exactly.
Yeah,
It was,
and you can
they
also
transformed into Hamas now.
you can also fake the protest by yourself.
Oh yes.
One funny thing in Syria that they used to say those protests are very few, but the protests who are with the regime are a lot. So what they used to do, they used to bring us all the students from schools, elementary
So
school.
pathetic.
We were like, okay, we're going out, and we're like, yay, we're going out. Where are we going? And then we have like the Syrian flags and pictures of Bashar al-Assad, and we're like, oh, Bashar al-Assad. And they would take us, and people would be, students would be happy. We have a day off school.
Yeah.
It's a synthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they show this on the media. Look, even students, the young, know the importance of Bashar al-Assad. For me, it was ironic because, what are we doing right now?
But I
It's
think
ridiculous.
with the social media, they cannot fool us anyway. I think
This is an important aspect. Like propaganda is still very powerful.
Oh my
They
God.
work, it controls. However, and if we look back at the case of Egypt, we have tools that we didn't have before.
yes, yes.
Like in the Arab Spring, it's the first collection of movements that happened also because we have these tools.
Yes.
Right? Now they want to abolish these tools, these platforms.
They cannot.
No.
They cannot.
Yeah, I mean, in Egypt and Syria, they cut off the internet and the electricity
Yeah,
for
we
a very
didn't
long
have
time
access,
to make sure that people don't know what's actually
say that.
happening. Yes, it is a type of censorship, But yeah, that is the second point. Propaganda, these kids are terrorists, agitators, outsiders, blah, blah, blah. I think this is a very important pattern for us to see and, understand when it's facts and when it's propaganda.
Yes.
The third thing is, okay, we're getting to the revolution part. Revolution sounds very, passionate and romantic. We love a revolution. It sounds great.
Sounds like a whisper.
It is beautiful. No,
Yeah,
I don't know someone that hates a revolution. But yeah, revolution is great. We love a revolution. But let's talk about being ready for a revolution. Education, number one, most of all, education. Two main things in my opinion: critical thinking, politics. These are things that people need to start thinking about very young, and they need to grow up with it. In my generation, there was a lot of you don't talk about politics. Study
We never
hard,
took it.
work
Yeah, we
hard,
never.
go to sleep. There wasn't in fact, people are usually afraid to teach their kids about politics because they know it increases the chance of you going to jail or, God forbid, die.
Yes.
And so, just any sort of education about politics was very frowned upon. But I think we need to just overcome this stigma and just collectively do this together. And honestly, in a way, I think that it's too late for me. but for the next generations, we need to teach them politics. And then the second thing, critical thinking. They need to be able to tell
By themselves.
By
Learn and
themselves.
reflect and,
the information that
Yeah.
they're given. They need to be able to research it. They need to not take things on face value. They have to have some sort of critical thinking, which in my opinion we didn't have. In my generation, we did not learn that stuff.
They didn't give us the opportunity
Yeah,
to do that.
yeah, we didn't have it.
Everything we learned in school is that the government is protecting us from
Yep.
people from outside.
Love the
Who-
army,
who-
love
who?
the police,
You
love
never
the
know.
president.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Without them, you will die. Like without the government,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
will die, and that's what you worship them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're pharaohs.
Yeah.
They're pharaohs. You
Yeah,
worship
they're
them.
immortal.
You say nothing wrong
Yeah.
about them.
Immortal.
Yeah, immortal. Another thing about revolutions that I want to talk about is a plan or a vision for the day after.
Oh, that's $1,000,000 question.
Oh my God. I mean, you do a revolution. You sacrifice life, money. What a revolution does, in my opinion, is basically dethrone a previous system, right? But that's all it does. The next day, you have to have a vision and a leadership to get you through the next day.
What's next?
Otherwise, what you have is a power vacuum. Who's gonna get in that power vacuum? Whoever is ready for it. If you're not ready for it, someone else who's ready for it is gonna go in.
The Muslim Brotherhood was ready.
Exactly. The Muslim Brotherhood
You were
ready.
perfectly ready.
The army was ready. They are very disciplined. They are very organized.
And the people were out. Like,
Yeah, but a lot of the people who actually paid with their lives
yes,
were
yes.
not even aligned
Yeah.
with any of these groups. But they weren't ready. They didn't have leadership. They didn't have a vision. They didn't even have at least a coalition of united vision. Nothing. So revolution on itself does not bring a good result.
Yeah.
It just starts a change process.
Yes.
And I think that is one dangerous thing about a lot of people who are like revolution. Sure, revolution could be the start of something good, but it could also be the start of chaos.
Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Are you ready for it?
And that
Evolution
makes
is.
some people regret.
Oh yes.
Some people, unfortunately,
A
in
lot
my
of-
country, maybe we should not have done this thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There's
Some
a lot of
people
these
think so, some-
Yeah.
For me, I don't. I admit that we weren't ready for what's after. I think if we had one,
Neither did
one-
we.
if we
Neither
had
did we.
someone that was ready to take the lead, maybe we wouldn't be here today. But I wouldn't say that I regret because
Yeah.
from the beginning, from the first Friday, it was a revolution of dignity. It was like we're no longer accepting this, and I believe that our revolution is one step to the next revolution.
Yes. Yes.
People who are
Same.
after us should learn of the things we did wrong,
Yes.
and they could lead us to
Which
the
is what we're
next.
doing right now.
Yeah.
On this
Exactly.
podcast, we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
learning from what happened.
And
We're-
that
hindsight is 2020, right? You
Yes.
look back and you learn.
that reminds me of. I probably want to misquote this, so do not quote me. What I believe it was Jewish German philosopher Walter Benjamin who said like every revolution should redeem the sins of the previous revolution.
Yeah.
You know.
Ah.
Don't quote me on that.
Alberto, 2024.
But just to finalize this point, I kept thinking, what if Assad is gone today? There's gonna be this vacuum, right? Is there like anyone that you'll see could potentially exist there?
Right now, for Syrians, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. If there was this person, maybe at least the people who are in the north, who are like 6 million, maybe they would unite, and they are still in Syria. But we don't have someone that we trust, like to give their trust and our power. Okay, take us somewhere, because the war is still happening, bombing is still happening. We could fight back, but with whom we are fighting
Yeah.
back? We only have ourselves right now, and we are so busy looking for ways to survive every day that we forgot about leadership.
Let's just survival.
There
We
are
just need to-
priorities.
Now
to,
we
like,
are in a
Let's
there's
live.
that pyramid of needs. We're like not
Yeah.
even scratching the
Survival.
surface of
I
the
mean,
basic
he's
needs.
playing the long game, like
Yeah.
Yes.
reminding the people, like,
Survive.
you don't do this,
For
and then you're gonna
13
come begging
years,
back.
13 years since the start of the revolution, we
Oh
are
my
on
God,
survival mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, revolutions are ugly, they are chaotic, and they are whatever you want them to be, whatever you make them to be. But then I think another thing that I want to talk about when it comes to revolutions is a revolution with a leader versus a revolution without a leader. So I believe in Egypt, a lot of people say that the reason why the revolution actually culminated into like the 25th of January is because it didn't have a leader. So there are advantages to not having a leader, because if you had a leader, you could very easily just, have them disappeared or killed, and then, the revolution is dispersed. So when you don't have a leader, it actually gives you a lot of leeway to do a grassroots
to.
kind of protest. And then, once there's too many of you, they can't really do anything with you anymore. So there are some advantages to not having a leader, but then the disadvantage is, well, what are you going to do on the day after? You're screwed if you don't have anyone. The power vacuum thing happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is another thing that I
It hurts my heart to talk bad about the revolution, but we're only saying this for you people to learn how to make a better revolution.
Yes.
I say I am born with the revolution,
Yeah.
I love revolution, but please make it better. I'll be there to make it better next
Oh
time.
yes. Oh yes. We will be there to make it better. Absolutely. I feel like also a lot of like Gen Z kids weren't that old during the revolutions. Like the Arab Spring, and so I really hope that a lot of Gen Z people get to hear this because they weren't, I think, old enough at the time to be aware of what really happened. I think this takes us to the fourth point, the trends point. Right now, Gaza is trending, and at a certain point, Egypt was trending and Syria was trending, but as you have heard, Syria is still in the same situation until now, 2024. So it's not trending anymore, but it is still pretty catastrophic to this day. So Gaza is trending right now, but I very much fear that it would just dissipate and people will forget about it, and it will still get worse and worse, or not get better. So I feel like these things
we
should
should
be
not forget it.
movements, not trends. It is so scary for me because it's a pattern that I see.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is very scary. So the last point that we have is what would you have done differently? And I think it has a lot of points also in it. The first thing I would say is that freedom is a constant struggle. It's a song, it's a book, but no, it's real. Freedom is a constant struggle. You don't like go through the revolution, succeed, and then it's a good life. No. This is you have to work even harder and even harder the next day to
For
plan, to not
our
rest.
returner audience, in our first episode, when we discussed apartheid, post-apartheid South Africa, that's the day the work actually started.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And 30 plus years later,
Still struggling.
You're still struggling.
Still trying very hard.
right?
It's not just a day and it's done. You have to work hard and plan and be serious about it every day in your life. It's not easy, you guys. Revolution is not easy.
It's hard.
It's very, very
It's
hard.
very hard. And,
Freedom is costly and it takes a lot of hard work.
And some people are privileged. Some people don't have any of those things. They don't have to deal with everything.
True.
With anything.
And they won't see it. It will be the struggle will be
Yes.
invisible for them. Yeah. The second thing we already talked about is educating the younger generation and make sure that they don't repeat the same mistakes that happened before. But yeah, the third thing is, we already talked about this, pressure cookers. We see, I believe, with enough critical thinking, you can see the pressure cookers build pressure. But that doesn't mean that we have to wait for it to explode. That means that we have to be ready. Because it could explode at any moment. You don't know when the trigger is going to happen, but you have to be ready for it. You have to have a coalition. You have to be organized to be able to fill that vacuum. That is bound to happen. It will definitely
It will happen.
Yeah. But yeah, have a good plan, have a good team, be disciplined, be organized.
Yes.
And I think we can say the same thing about Palestine right now. As we said, revolutions and uprisings, they are risky. I like to think of it as rolling the dice. Especially if you're someone who was born and lived your whole life in Gaza. You roll the dice on... There's like two outcomes. You're already dead. You are living dead in Gaza already. So if I had to choose between living dead or die trying to be free, God, I would throw the dice.
Yeah.
I would throw the
I would die
dice.
trying.
Definitely.
That's what happened in
I would
Syria.
try. So yeah, it is revolution, uprising, all these things. They all stem from the same thing. Risk. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of ugliness to it, but there is a way to make it work. We have to work hard.
Yes.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you in the context of Palestine, the way I see it, you can live subjugated and be fine. You're not gonna, you can not lose your family, not lose your friends, and live subjugated if that's what you want, if that's how you want to live. But is living in this subjugated state, is it really living? Are you even alive
Exactly.
if you are in that kind of state? In my opinion, no, you're not. You're dead.
And this is in their opinion as well. Like,
Yeah.
they believe, they have a very strong faith.
Yeah.
Very strong faith to decide this kind of decision, and they're actually just
Yeah,
We're
even
gonna
if
go
it's
for it.
risky, even if
We're gonna
if
die.
there's a 90% chance for me to die, God,
Yes,
I
it's
will
okay.
take the risk. I'm dead already.
Exactly.
yeah,
So yeah, revolution, uprising.
yeah,
That is what we have to say about it.
Yeah.
yeah, true.